everybody, I'm Miranda and I'd like to welcome you back to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you 6 of my favorite podcasts that I recommend for learning English. The first podcast I'd like to recommend is called The English We Speak and is a BBC production. This is a very nice podcast for students of all levels. You can select your level between basic and advanced. And each listening exercise is around 3 minutes. It's very compact with up-to-date vocabulary and phrases that you can hear every day in the media and popular culture. What I especially like about this podcast is that they use very modern phrases and expressions that you hear every day. The topics are interesting. There's something for everyone. Usually they focus on current events going on, so you can really practice those words and vocabulary that you hear in the media every day. Since the podcasts are so short, you can pace yourself. You can listen to one podcast a day to pick up a few new expressions, or you could listen to several. You can also go on their website and practice vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation. You could listen to the podcast along with the transcript and really focus on your pronunciation as well. So I give this 5 stars out of 5. The next podcast is also brought to you by BBC and it's called 6 Minute English. The podcasts are also very short and compact. This podcast can be used like a course. You can go in and do the activities that go along with the listening. They focus on grammar, vocabulary, listening skills, and pronunciation. There's something for everyone and for every need. They also have questions that you're supposed to keep in mind when you do the listening, so you can then at the end take a quiz and check your listening comprehension. It's a very nice way to do self-study in English. You can go onto their website and do the activities there, or you can also download the podcast to your phone or other device and just listen when you're waiting for a train or sitting on the train or going about your daily life. You can listen to these podcasts and they're spoken in a very clear English, not too slow, so it's still natural and you have native speakers speaking. But I feel like it's challenging for everybody and you can select your level as well. I give 6 Minute English 5 stars out of 5. The next podcast I'd like to review is Voice of America Learning English. This is a multimedia source of news and information, and it has been around since 1959 with the purpose of promoting the learning of English throughout the world. It was initially a radio program, but has evolved into a cross between a news outlet and English learning platform. You have a wide variety of activities: grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and reading comprehension. You also have short interviews with a focus on language skills. I find this podcast very good for people who would like to keep up with their English every day and listen to different topics from around the world. So the news that they use is not just focused on the United States. They have an international program where they look at news around the world. It's very up to date. Everyone will find something interesting. They have technology, arts, culture, news. They also have health and lifestyle topics, so everyone can find something interesting to focus on. The levels are also very comprehensive. You have beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels on this website. You have all the podcasts that you can download as well onto your device. So if you want it just for listening practice, that's also a very good way to keep up with the English language. I would give Voice of America 4 out of 5 stars. The reason is that if you compare it to the BBC program, I find that Voice of America, although they have a lot of levels, they tend to speak a bit too slowly. So it's fine if you're intermediate. I think it's fine to have people who speak at a little bit of a graded level, But if you want to hear natural, fluent English, I would recommend more the BBC podcasts or even authentic podcasts that are not designed for language learners per se. Now I'm turning to the more authentic podcasts that are designed for native speakers and not necessarily learners of English. I'm a firm believer that no matter what your level is, you should spend some time listening to native speakers speaking amongst themselves naturally, just to get the natural flow of the language, the phonetics and the rhythm of the language spoken. If you're still intermediate or not too fluent in English, maybe you could combine an English learning podcast with an authentic podcast that interests you, where the language is not too fast or colloquial. If the topic of the podcast is not too specific, then you shouldn't have a problem to follow. Even if you only understand 50 to 60% of the podcast, your brain is getting used to certain phrases that are used in everyday conversation. So I'd like you to give it a try. Stuff You Should Know is hosted by two friends, Josh and Chuck. And these two guys, you could tell, have a very special friendship. So they research a topic 3 times a week and produce a podcast. Some are short, some are longer. They have topics ranging from everything: fashion, history, science, pop culture, everything. They have so many good topics, really well researched. And what I love about this podcast is there's a good mix of humor and chit chat. So they often make little jokes among themselves and make an effort to give really quality podcasts on the topics that they go over. You could tell that they're really good friends and they have a cute way of relating to each other. It's not too fast. I don't think language learners will have a problem with slang or dialect. I would give Stuff You Should Know 5 stars out of 5. I've learned so much from this podcast, and I would recommend it to anyone who's at a more advanced level in English to expand your vocabulary and learn something new. The next podcast I'd like to review is a very juicy and suspenseful one. It's called Catfish. A catfish is someone who takes on a false identity online in order to pursue romantic relationships with people who don't know their true identity. This podcast is not so intellectual. It's more of a dramatic series. It's actually an MTV production based on a TV show. It's been adapted as a podcast. It is very intriguing, so you get to know people who don't know what's going on as they do detective work. You have the producers who accompany the main character in trying to figure out whether their romantic partner is really who they think they are. You always find out whether the person is indeed a catfish or not. And I was really intrigued by this show because I had no idea this was going on. I'm not the youngest person, so I don't know so much about these online things. But I was surprised at the motivations, why people do this, so why people take on a false identity online, and how people can be tricked into falling for someone they've never met before in person. Sometimes it gets heated, sometimes there are arguments, but sometimes there are also cases of forgiveness or friendships forming through this process. And I would recommend it to anyone who likes this type of reality show. I would give Catfish 4 stars out of 5 for learning English because I think you do have some accents that may be difficult to follow. Not all. Some of them are quite clear and a lot of people actually speak slowly. It is suspenseful, and I would give Catfish 4 stars out of 5 for learning English because I think the topics don't vary too much. There's a lot of emotion, which is good, but it doesn't give you so much variety. So if you use Catfish for learning English, I would recommend also using maybe a language learning website or a language learning podcast that has more variety in topics. If you want something gripping that keeps your attention, then Catfish is the great choice for you. The last podcast I want to review for you today is called This American Life. This American Life is one of my personal favorite podcasts. It's a weekly podcast where they take one topic or one theme and make 2 or 3 different sections where they focus on the theme. It's very heartwarming. It's a public radio program. It usually consists of interviews. The show is known for its excellent journalism, and it was actually the first podcast to ever win the Pulitzer Prize, which is normally reserved for books and literature. I recommend this podcast for anyone who's interested in improving their English. I would give this podcast 5 stars out of 5 for its incredible content. I think a lot of work goes into each podcast. They're researched well. The speakers normally speak in a clear manner. Sometimes they go abroad, so although the name is This American Life, they don't only focus on American topics. Sometimes they look at different stories from around the world. I hope you give it a try and you find a topic that's interesting to you. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to my recommendations. I have linked all of the websites in the description box, so I hope that you give them a try. You can then give me your feedback in the comments. Did you listen to anything interesting? Did you learn anything? How would you rate these podcasts? Take care and happy listening. See you next time.